What up, folks? How's everybody doing out there?
Great.
Good. Us too. All right. Good. So, if you don't know Tommy Tikka, you should. Tommy Tikka is a Finnish musician. He has Tommy Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps. Tommy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Hey,
Great.
we're doing really good. Thank you.
So he's Finnish, but he grew up in the States.
Yes. Grew up in San Francisco.
Yep.
Ohio, went to school in Kentucky.
Kentucky. I came back to Kentucky.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And yeah, I lived in Chicago for about 5 years.
Nice.
Which it's just really long time ago. You know, it seems
Just a
like
couple years ago.
a few years ago. Yeah. Right.
You know what's interesting is now that we kind of know that he grew up in the States, but he was also San Francisco in the late 80s.
Oh yeah.
It explains the music.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
the
yeah.
80s, growing up in the 80s, and that explains where some of the stuff comes from. What are your favorite bands, and what kind of did you draw from in your music?
You know, it's kind of weird. I've often thought about that because my favorite band in the world is probably the Beatles.
Yeah.
But then again, and I think that what influenced me most was my dad was listening to blues, soul.
Yeah.
You know, I just the Stones.
Yeah.
One of my dad's favorite bands, you know, all-time favorites, was Hulu and News.
Right in your backyard.
They're from backyard, right. And so it's my dad loved Americana. You know, there's a lot of country music there as well. Merle Haggard was his favorite country musicians. I mean, he's wonderful. I think that, you know, when in terms of Merle Haggard, I think he's the Beatles of country music, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, stuff like that. I think the Beach Boys, the Beatles, the Stones, everything I mentioned, they're all there at least, and the Byrds. For some odd reason, that's what my parents were listening to, and I started listening to music when I was 6. You know, I wasn't really influenced by my peers at that point. And I think that's how I sort of I found that music, and I kind of just always stayed with it. I do like, you know, some of the new bands, especially bands from the 90s. Not that they're new, because they're like ancient already. Every once in a while these days I hear stuff on the radio that I like, but most of the stuff I hear on the radio I really dislike. It's going a little bit crazy, you know. These are bad years for rock and roll. They
are. Well, you were talking about legends, right? We're talking about legends that were staying on their own without auto-tune.
Yes.
Right. So that's what we're listening to these days. You know?
It's auto-tune.
Yeah.
Big time. You know, you sit there and you bring up, you know, growing up we talked a little earlier about growing up about being in the 80s and the influence. To me, that had to be one of the best times for music for us way back when as kids, because you had everything from Kool and the Gang all the way up to Metallica to Alabama to Merle Haggard, and I mean just that full spectrum there.
Such a mash of different music at one time.
It was unbelievable.
Because you even like you're from Finland, right? There was a lot of European influence that came over at the same time. Yeah. It's such a mashup of music.
Oh man.
And listening to a lot of your songs before and kind of researching before, you have so much pulled from different things in your songs. Do you feel that you grab from so many different ways?
Yeah, I do. I just, you know, one of the things that I do love about the Beatles is that they're not genre specific, in the sense that there's a lot of things they do. There's vaudeville and there's heavy rock, you know, there's country, there's pop, there's everything. It's just sort of a mishmash of everything that's wonderful. Right. It's sort of a history of Western music in a way. If you listen to all the Beatles albums, you're acquainted with that. I always felt that it would probably, or I still feel that it would have been easier for me throughout my career just to stick with one specific genre, because a lot of people do that. And all the more power to them, because I think that it's clearer, because then if somebody likes one of your songs and the next single is pretty much more of that, then, you know, you kind of it's good because then they know your sound, they know what to expect from you. In
Right.
my case, I always found that a little bit boring. I that's one of the things I love about the Beatles is that on the one hand you have something like Good Night, which closes the White Album, or then you can have Helter Skelter on it, and if you have songs like In My Life, Yesterday, Help, Strawberry Fields Forever. It's all there. It's just really versatile, and I don't plan my stuff to be versatile, but that's how it always sort of ends up. Uh, I get a great idea, or what I perceive as great idea, and then I'm thinking, well, this doesn't really maybe gel well with the other stuff or other songs that I'm putting out. But then I figure out that it's a great song. As far as I'm concerned, it'll be on the album because it just I love doing it, which might not make you world famous, but at least you get to do what you love. So
yeah.
Do you have have you been gigging, or has it been a while since you gigged?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, because I did it so much at one point.
So do you have something that gets you ready before a show?
I used to. I listened to it's oddly enough none of this stuff. There's a couple of songs that I love listening to, or loved listening to. Van Halen, Loss of Control, which I think is just one of those songs that just kind of gets you pumped up, just so much energy in it. And that's on Women and Children First for those folks who don't know where to find it, because it's not one of the hits. I always I love listening to Mick Jagger's solo record that from the 90s that has that Sweet Thing, or what's that, Wandering Spirit. There are a couple of songs like Wired All Night, which starts the album, which is insanely energetic. It's just incredible. You listen to Jagger's performance, but the whole group that he's got playing there, it just, if you don't feel like going out and playing after that, then there's something wrong with you.
I love it. I love it that we never got into like getting pumped up before. So it's great that you brought that up. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So what are you in Finland? Are you opened up enough that you can actually go out and play?
We're starting to be, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, and I'd probably be right there with everybody else, but Missing Hubcaps is it's a make-believe band where I play everything myself.
Hey.
And so awesome. It's it one-man band, just I did a couple of acoustic gigs, but the songs don't sound the same, and you can't have the same drive and the energy, and so I kind of, it was always going to be a studio project.
Gotcha.
When my brother and I had a band that recorded for Sony Music called Carmen Gray and Warner for later on. And when that band disbanded, my brother went the other way. He put a new band together, and I auditioned some because we were a songwriting team, and so we kind of broke up, the two of us in a way as well. So he went his way, I went mine, and I auditioned some musicians. But the problem is that when you got a band, and when you're used to a band that's just really super good, just incredible, the groove, all of it, and you're starting something new, it doesn't I just felt like the demos that I had made by myself, where I was more or less emulating what the different members of the group were doing, sounded much better than playing with these new folks. And then I also wanted full control at that point, and I think that it's kind of unfair to drag a group of musicians somewhere and say that you play this, you play that, and you're playing too much over here. I don't want, too much on the snare here. No, you're doing it all wrong. And I think that it's kind of unfair. So I came to the conclusion that as far as records go, I'll just handle all the instruments myself. I knew what I wanted to sound, and so far so good. Live performing is a bit difficult, and that's probably the only thing that I cannot get around to. However, I think that if Tom Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps ever became a household name, if there'd be a miracle, and there'd be a good reason for me to assemble a group to perform this, I'd do it. But
well, you know what? I went to a Lord's concert.
Yeah.
She does it all on her own.
Really?
She just has the backtracking.
Yeah,
So
you
there
could
are
do that.
bands
Yeah.
that do that. And it's focused on her. And then obviously the production level on top of that's incredible.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And it actually is a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that might be
it's one-
something you know.
Yeah, it's one option. I mean, I've thought about that, but somehow it hasn't really felt right yet. And also, I think that before you go out and tour, it- you want to make sure that wherever it is that you tour, you have an audience.
Yeah.
I'm sort of out of the, in terms of what's happening in Finland these days, in as much as whatever's happened ever here, I'm a bit of an oddball. I'm not really, I don't feel part of the Finnish music scene. I was for a brief while when Carmen Gray was doing great, but even that wasn't planned because we were always culturally more American in my family. So my focal point was the English speaking world. Has always been. And so as a result, with Tom Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps, I haven't really even marketed. I've done nothing for this project over here. Yeah, but here I am talking to two Americans, marketing my stuff,
Right.
and
it's over here.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
And so I think it's the fact that Hearts on Fire is now on the media base activator chart over there is pretty remarkable and speaks volumes, because it's not even played on the radio here. No, sorry, actually, one station picked it up a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Hey, all right.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
Well, it's also, just so you know, we're on here. One of our sponsors is
Anchor by Spotify.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely. And
so
you can definitely find it on there
as well.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's funny is we actually got picked up that if you actually tell your Alexa, play whatever Robin Chris, it actually plays it. So marketing can happen in so many ways. So if you need to talk to Chris about how to set that up, let him know. But
definitely,
that'd be really good for you.
Get you on there,
Cool.
Get you going.
What we're seeing happen over here in the States is the bands are coming back from the old 80s bands.
Oh, big time.
And they're playing the small venues. They're hitting it. And that's where I think you'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
And you could be up there. These guys are all coming back.
Yeah, a lot of the old timers. Yeah, of course. But people of that generation and my generation were probably the last ones who actually did old-fashioned touring.
Yeah.
Which meant, played some loud rock and roll, got crazy and smashed afterwards. It just, if you think about the pop world these days, it's kind of based on cute.
Yeah.
Big nothing is,
and it's there's nothing, you don't feel close to the music.
How does that 12-year-old like me?
What? Yeah, right. Yeah. Sorry, we got cut off there.
Sorry.
No, that's no, but that's true. Yeah.
But the people that when I've gone out to the venues now, oh my gosh, they've been dying for this. It's been so long, and people are happy. Mm-hmm. They're having such a good time. They're up and dancing. They're having so much fun. And what's weird is the security guards don't know how to handle it, because they're trying to get people to stop having fun just because they're so used to how crazy it is. And the bands are like, no, come up to the stage, come up like in front and dance and sing with me. And they're like, no, this is a special area. Where it used to be, you could go to a concert, you remember in the 80s in San Francisco.
Yeah, it was different.
Put your arms over the rail and you're sitting there watching whatever band. Yeah. And that was what was so amazing. And we've now gone to these specialized seating and everybody's sitting.
Yeah. I mean, the world's changed. And I mean,
concert's weird. It's weird to me. Yeah.
No, but I mean, if you think in terms of all what we're talking about is rock and roll right now. We're talking about rock concerts. But if you think about what kind of concerts there are out there these days, where people, just kind of go to in masses. These are pop artists. They're not rock and rollers anymore. The whole circus of what you're talking about. Yeah. Only the old timers can bring it to town because they're the only ones who know how it's being done.
Right.
Nowadays, everything's play back anyway, and there's some cute girl or boy singing their pop tunes. It's just synthesized, and they come on, and there's a light show, and there might be 20,000 people, but in reality, they're really all sitting down, or maybe, you know, that really crazy ones get up and whatever, just, you know.
There's always those, right? You always got
right. Yeah, but I mean, but it was so different, and I think the era, everything we talk about, it was still it was crazy. Actually, the 80s were rather crazy for music if you think in terms of how much money was poured into record production and how much of that money was snorted off the control board, you know. And I no, seriously, and obviously I never did that, but a lot of it was insane. And I think that in certain ways, I think we've gone a little bit, we're less crazy these days, but obviously the fact that the records aren't selling, you know, and the fact that everything's changed, people aren't paid to make music anymore. I think that it's also bringing down the bar a little bit. And we're ending up with Spotify filled with these folks putting out whatever music they're putting out. And there's no quality control. It doesn't feel special anymore. All of a sudden, you know, there used to be maybe 50 artists that were really super hot worldwide, right? Everybody knew them. They were waiting for their records. Nowadays, you got like 100,000, 200,000 bands putting out stuff. Most of it is just unlistenable.
It's just noise.
Noise doesn't meet the standards in any way, but hey, it's out there.
Right.
And
as long as the girl looks cute and she's barely wearing any clothing.
Yeah, but you know, it's weird, you know, but oddly enough, that side has always been there. If you remember people like Samantha Fox, you know.
Oh, I remember Samantha Fox.
Yeah, right. You know, and that, and Sabrina or what have you in the 80s, if I remember correctly. You had these artists and they were beautiful. And hey, but that's the same. If you go to Instagram and you post something worthwhile, it gets 14 likes, and then there's a girl in bikini and there's like 3 million. You know, and so I think we've gotten to the point, not that I don't enjoy those pictures, however, saying that, you know, if you put a year towards making a record, and it's a brilliant record, it's well produced, it's, you know, blood, sweat, and tears in your part, and you put it out there and you get a great review and you post that, it's like, you know, nobody cares.
Right.
You take a picture of a dog peeing, you know, 300,000 likes.
Yeah.
And I think that in a world like that, it's very difficult to market anything of value, because what people really want is completely different. We didn't have YouTubers, you see.
Right.
Logan Paul wasn't born, you know, and no. What else you have that my kids are like, yeah, have you heard of this dude? You know, he can eat 50 eggs in 1 minute, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to know this dude.
Pretty much.
You know, why?
Right.
Hey, Tommy, Rob tried the bikini thing. It didn't quite work for us. But hey, you know,
dresses, tights, I've done it all.
Yeah.
No, I like where you're coming from.
We come from that old school, and this whole show was about talking to interesting people and wonderful people and stuff. And we've actually just really had a lot of fun. We've interviewed people from all the place and world,
all over the world.
Like
it's been great.
But again, we aren't doing the stuff that's the full traction of millions of people, but we get a good group.
Yeah.
But it's hard to compete because there's a million of us now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, it's weird. I think that podcasts are skyrocketing right now.
Right.
You know, every sort of, and it's that, I think the same thing with that as with music is that, you know, lots of them just aren't very good. I'm not gonna, you know, I love doing this with you today because this is real. It's, you know, but I've every once in a while, you know, your label hits you with something that there's a podcast, you do it. I remember this one guy, and you know, doesn't matter who it was. He said that, why don't you just talk about these things that while you're talking, I'll just, you know, I'll take my kid to kindergarten and then I'll just edit it. And so I was left alone to give the interview, which I did pretty well, Although, I felt like telling him that, dude, I've been on national TV in many countries in my heyday. I'm not doing this. But I felt, okay, look, he, that's the way he does things, but it was just, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but that's not quality. You're not going to get the best of the person you're interviewing if you do that. You're going to get something from him, but the interaction is what makes these things interesting.
Right. That's a big thing about us is we always get to the end of a show and we get messages, or it was so much fun. Yeah. And they want to come back on, and it's because we're just trying to be real people. We're just really
that's what interviews
should be, and get excited about things,
but that's what interviews should be about, the interaction. Exactly. If you look at the best ones, they're about the interaction between the person who's being interviewed and the people who are doing the interviewing.
Right.
And nowadays, by the way, have you noticed that a lot of small time bands, especially, but even the bigger ones, they do these like 3-minute YouTube Q&As. Oh my God, they serve no one, and now I'm probably going to get shot, for saying this, but I don't think they serve anyone. And I mean, it's just weird. This is what people want to see, at least what I want to see, of my vintage want to see. People interacting, and you have like nobody asking questions. Questions appear on the screen, and then there's somebody, my first album and whatever. And I don't like that at all.
Yeah, when it's so static, we always find we had a guy send us questions before.
Yep.
And we ended up, I think we only used one question.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of expecting, we just kind of threw him out as we went, like who we are, like we're doing
just having fun.
And he literally was like, I didn't expect that, but it was much more fun.
Yeah. We actually had somebody cancel on us because we did not send them the questions that we were going to ask.
Yep.
Shoot, we barely know what questions we're going to ask until we get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, but maybe there's once again in terms of generational difference here, because I think that in the olden times everything was done like this.
Right. Yeah.
And people got better at improvising, and I obviously, if it's a new artist or an artist who hasn't been interviewed to death, maybe they need that. That's a security blanket. But I remember the first time they hauled my ass to the radio, and I got the headphones and I was sitting there, and there's somebody opposite, and they've been doing that for like 5,000 years,
Right.
and you've never done it before, and there's no questions, and they just kind of like start shooting these things at you. I mean, it's daunting at first, but I think the more you do it, then the more you start enjoying the natural interaction, which that's the only way to truly get that going.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So back to your music, because we were just having fun. We go off all
right.
Right? Because so definitely about your music. So what's the latest? What's what you trying to get the attention for on your music? What's kind of where you're going with it right now?
How do you mean?
So where are you writing as we speak, basically?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought.
And are you taking your music a certain way? Is there something that's kind of is the world pulling for you?
No, I mean,
writing or how do you get your music? What brings it out for you?
Well, right now with the Missing Hubcaps, which is my solo venture, I think it's been wonderful because that's the first time in my life where I can just, mess around with music in the sense that, if I, on the new album that's going to come out in the fall, in September, I think it was September the 17th.
Okay.
It has one song that is just string arrangement and me singing, and so if I wanted to do a song like that, because I've been listening to classical music all my life as well, I can arrange, I can do that. Then I can go ahead and do it. And one of the great things about working with MTS Records and Michael Stover, especially because he's been the executive producer on that album, has been that he's kind of crazy creative as well, like me. And so if I contacted him and I said that, look, I got this song called Garden of Judas, but it only has 2 chords. And Michael's like, I love it. Let's do it. Because lots of times my songs have like a plethora of chords, in like
4 chords. You have to have 4 chords for a big song.
Yeah, right. But I wanted to write something in the vein of CCR,
Okay.
and those,
There we go.
old John Fogerty CCR kind of tunes that were a little bit longer, like Susie Q, and you got those longish solos. And he'd be just like, "Hey, let's do this, man. Let's fill it up with all this other stuff and just make it interesting, like the way they did it back in the late 60s." And so it's been great because with Carmen Gray, obviously had big recording companies like Sony and Warner, and
Right.
obviously when somebody's paying big bucks, they decide what goes and what doesn't.
Yeah.
After that, with the Impersonators, there's Antti Autio, it's a duo, and then our producer Janne Saksa, and a couple of, it just kind of grew and ended up being not exactly like Carmen Gray, but I didn't have the control that I always wanted to have. And so when the Impersonators went on break, I started the Missing Hubcaps. And it was just to get all this stuff that I'd written over the years that weren't right for Carmen Gray or the Impersonators out.
Good.
But then it started having a life of its own, and even the name, the Missing Hubcaps, it's sort of when I was a teenager, my dad was in he was in tire business, so this is when we lived in the States, and he loved cars, and we would change tires together because he wanted me to learn it, and I was always writing a song in my head, sort of.
Because you have his Chevy, right?
Right. Yeah, true.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. It's one of my prized possessions. And but yeah, I mean, so I remember him having these custom made hubcaps, which were rather expensive, and we're changing, tires, and I was doing a shitty job. One of the hubcaps started rolling down the hill, and this is in Frisco.
Story of my life.
Right. And there's a huge van that just comes and smashes it right in zillion pieces. My dad got a little bit upset. And after he had calmed down, because it was sort of a yelling match there between us, because, I obviously was ashamed and ready to say that it was all his fault, when in reality it was mine. We had a bit of a fight. Then he came over to my room before I went to bed and said, "Look, it doesn't matter. It's all right. You did a good job with the other tires. I'll just replace that hubcap." And then he said that, "By the way, your band should be called the Missing Hubcaps."
That's great.
And I said, "Well, what a lame name for a rock band," when I was 16. And then later on, after my dad had, passed away, and I was sort of thinking also that what could I do to honor his memory? And I thought, we'll bring the band name back, And so when Michael at the MTS Records was saying, what's it gonna be called? And I said, it's gonna be called Tom Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps.
That's cool.
And so that.
He's paying homage to his dad.
Yeah.
And it's got such a great story behind it. I love that so much. It's such a, man, that's awesome. I love that.
I gotta tell you, I got one more question for you.
Go ahead.
For somebody that's young coming into the music business, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, if you love music, keep going. If you love stardom, turn back and find something. I think find something else, because I think becoming successful in music is so much more difficult than becoming successful in business. I've done both, and I think the business part was just hard work. Music is extremely hard work, and it's 90% luck.
It's commitment, right? Too.
Commitment, yeah. But I mean, so if you're the type of person who would skip a band practice or writing a song and rather go out on a date with a beautiful girl or spend your day at the beach, forget it. You're never going to make it. I can't tell you how many dates I've blown off. I mean, just to write a song. I'm not proud of that, by the way. And if anybody's listening, I'm very sorry. But
hey, wait a minute, there are people listening.
And your number is you can fix that problem now.
Right. And we're even on Pacific time, man. Just like, but it's I was young and I was driven, and I think that music always came first. And I think that if it's not natural for somebody, that always comes first, and you need to work so hard that then just keep it as a hobby, because it is a great hobby. And you know, I've seen so many people wanting to become a star and wanting that big recording contract, never really getting it, and then becoming depressed and all that. So I think that if you do it for the right reasons, which is for the love of music, and you'd be doing it anyway, just, you know, just keep pushing and don't give up. And, you know, it's a good, you know, I started writing songs when I was 6, 7, and a major label started putting my songs out when I was 31.
Yeah.
So
nice. It's a lot.
You know, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And so, you know, take whoever's listening, take that advice for whatever it is, but that's my view. I think that if you want quick success, it's easier.
You loved what you did. Like, you had a band that was big, it broke up. That was hard for you, the breakup.
Oh yeah, it was awful. Yeah, because I didn't.
But
you
can still look back at that and go, man, no regrets.
No regrets, none whatsoever.
Right.
I you know, I wouldn't change anything.
There's a lot to say about that. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
having the regrets.
Yeah, and you know, in terms of, you know, things that I wish had gone differently, because my brother and I are fast friends again, and we're writing again together. I mean, as a matter of fact, we wrote one song for my new album, and sort of I returned the favor, and so it was sort of a reunion for us as well. But during those last sessions that we had, I remember working on the last release. It was sort of, the rut had set in, and I think that both of us were sort of competing over who gets the next single, even if we were writing together, and whose idea we're working on and how we're going to develop this song.
Right.
It was getting nasty. And I think, you know, it took us about a couple of years to cool off and to start sort of carefully writing again. But he's a great guy, and he's ultra talented, and I love writing with him. But we weren't in a great place, I think, at that particular time. At least I wasn't.
And so you never know, because bands are getting back together like crazy. So
yeah, we've spoken about that, but then we always think in terms of, you know, 3 albums, 1 EP, the radio hits and everything. We don't want to revisit that. We'd rather keep the memories. You know, we're kind of happy doing what we're doing.
That's
awesome. I think small reunions like
that's a lot.
Small reunions like the song that I have on my new album that we co-wrote.
Yeah.
And that's great, you know, because we can do stuff like that. But in terms of doing the whole everything again, just
no.
Wait, you don't want to do the Kiss reunions?
No, I really don't. I think that once you've moved on, you know, and
the final ending, lasting tour 20.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
You know, as much as I love the best albums by Kiss and their best songs and Kiss in general, I think it's a little bit silly to just kind of, you know, just quit what you're doing, then come back and quit again, come back again. Just, you know, these hundreds of reunions.
I'm going to go see them September 12th. So,
well, I mean, who doesn't want to see them? They're great.
Right. They put on a show. I mean, they're entertainers.
And even the music. I was just, you know, I was listening to the latest album, Monster, and came to the conclusion that I loved it.
Yeah.
I you know, Hell or Hallelujah is, and from the previous album, a lot of the tracks, you know, the one that they did, what's the name of the album? Sonic Boom. They're both great albums. I think that it's the 70s Kiss in many ways, and I love that stuff. And you know, I'd rather actually have a new album by them than the tour, to be honest with you.
That works.
I mean, and Paul Stanley at his best, you can't beat that. You know, insanely good singer, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You got anything else? Because
hey,
we got to kind of wrap this
up.
up.
Tommy, this was phenomenal.
We're always going in ourselves, like not knowing what's going to happen, and man, we really connect with our guests.
Yeah,
we can't wait to follow up with you again in the future.
Absolutely.
Hey, sounds great, man.
Yeah. And Tommy, usually we do a show for 20 minutes, and then that's kind of it. But we like to feel off of our guests, and we go and we've gone 35 minutes, and I think this is one of our longer shows.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. You know, it was great. And hey, I'll definitely be coming back if you guys have me.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Love it. Thank you.
I love it.
Thanks so
Definitely.
much, Tommy. We will see you. And what up?
What up, everybody?
Hey,
You guys have a
what
great
up?
day.
Right.
Have a good one.
Cheers. Bye.